Hey guys, welcome to Guided Home Podcast. Today we're sitting down with my niece, Gigi Torres, who's an incredible dancer, choreographer, and dance mentor. We talk about all things dance, her journey through the dance world, and how dance ultimately helped bring her through some of the most painful moments in her life. She has amassed a huge following through this beautiful art, and she's also created several companies doing so. She is a light worker, a way shower, all through the medium of this beautiful, incredible artwork of dance. So tune in, and I hope you enjoy this episode. If you like what you hear, please consider liking, subscribing, or sharing this episode with whomever you think will also enjoy it. So thank you for listening, and sit back, enjoy, and welcome home. All right. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome to Guided Home, Gigi Torres. I know you as family. I've watched you grow up since you were a young girl in the dance world. I also know you as a dancer. But will you share with us how the world knows Gigi Torres?
Yes, I am a choreographer, a dance educator, a mentor, a purpose guide. I help dancers create the process to their purpose.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But there's more to that. Like, you've been all over the world. You continue to travel every single weekend, bringing your gift of choreography to young girls. Tell us about that. Actually, tell us about, like, I guess take us back to you as a young dancer and when you found out, like, this is my jam, like, this is the thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I had no choice to go into dance. It was my parents that put me in there when I was 3, and I was in there every week from 3 all the way until I was a teenager in the studio, and it was all I knew. It was what I loved to do. And from there, finding hip hop dance, I think when I was 14 or 15, I was like, this is my jam. You know, like, I grew up with, like, the ballet
Yes.
and, like, and everything, and, like, the technique training. And a lot of my teachers were like, oh, you know, this is not the body. And like, this is not
Right.
all of that. And I'm like, well, I'm here. I still love it. But I found hip hop, and I think that was like, okay, this is what I love to do, like, my jam. So from being a teenager and then going into being an adult, I was like, I want to try this, you know? So I went to college for a year and a half, ended up dropping out. Parents did not like that, but I was like, you know, I'm like, here, like, we're in Orange County, only an hour away from LA. The training is up there. I want to do this thing, and ended up trying this whole dance career out. I thought I wanted to be a dancer behind an artist. Like, my dream was, like, to dance behind Janet Jackson, and Justin Timberlake and all of that. And I got really close to the auditions, but didn't make it, but also had some experiences dancing behind artists when, like, they're more like Asian artists or other artists that were just coming up. And I remember walking off the stage going, oh, that's it? Like, I thought it was going to give me more.
Yeah.
It wasn't as fulfilling. And so I actually started teaching when I was young at 15 at a studio.
Wow.
I was still teaching while I was doing the whole audition dance thing. And and I'm like, you know what? I want to create. So got into that. And that was for real. That was my jam. I'm like, I want to create. I want to choreograph. I want to put the things that I see on stage on the stage. Like, I want to be that creative. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's when I found out, I think, that I had more of a purpose and a more fulfilling just journey doing this whole process of creativity on stage.
Right. Dance is the vehicle, right? Can you take us back? Because I think you said an important point, and I want to be mindful of our listeners that are kind of, you know, going through whatever journey they're going through, whatever art path that they're taking. You had mentioned that, you know, you were classically trained, right? We start off with the ballet, the jazz, the tap, and you had mentioned something about, like, okay, this isn't the dancer's body. And the only reason why I want to take us back to that is because I'm teeny tiny. I did the same thing. They're like, you're not tall enough to be on point. You're not tall enough to be a ballerina. And that was my dream at one point. And I think that's important. Like, I think that's important point for young girls, teenagers, young boys, whomever, to know that, like, just because you're told you're not the type doesn't mean that it's game over, right? So talk about what it felt like to hear those words as a young girl, and then talk about what it felt like to be like, and still there's more.
Yeah.
To me.
I mean, growing up in Orange County in Irvine and going into this studio, already I knew I was different because I was one of the only colored people in the room.
Yes.
So being in there, I'm like, okay, cool. And then everybody's like going down and there's like center splits. And I'm like, I can't do the whole thing. Like my body wasn't built to be flexible already.
Wow.
So I felt out on the outside already. And I tried to fit in so much. And during ballet class, I remember like we would be at the bar doing our grand plies and like my ballet teacher would just like kind of tap my butt and be like, okay, put your, you got to tuck in. And I'm like, this is how big it is. Like,
I'm like getting emotional. Like, yeah, go ahead.
And I'm like, okay. And I felt strange trying to like make my butt be smaller and all of that. So it was really tough trying to fit in the whole time of like growing up, even though I still loved being in the room.
Yes.
And then my hip hop teacher came in and was just like, oh, like we're going to do hip hop walks across the floor and you're going to be down to the ground and you don't have to be pulled up. And I'm like, cool. Great.
Yes, you're like, this is where I belong.
Yeah. But I think like growing up, it was really tough. I mean, it was to a point where when I was in middle school, I was in a competition team. So we would do competitions like every so often. And my group was on stage and I was in the audience. And I was like, oh, that's my competition piece that they're dancing for the talent show. And they didn't ask me to be on it.
Oh my goodness.
I still felt, I'm like, well, I still feel out on the outside.
Oh my goodness.
And it was hard for me to find like my footing into it.
Wow.
But I think when I did find hip hop, it was like, oh, the culture of hip hop was like, you belong.
Yeah.
Let's connect. It wasn't so like we're better. It wasn't like a competition anymore, so.
It was, you still belong in the room.
Yeah.
It just didn't look like how you imagined it to be.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that this is why you are such a powerful mentor, a powerful dance mentor to young dancers and even to adult dancers?
Yeah, I think that's where I base a lot of my programming off of. It's not just like, here's the programming and I created this program for you to be a better dancer, but here's the programming for us to be together, to learn about each other as human beings, to connect with each other. Because I think that's the best thing about dance is connecting to someone on a human level and not just being, hey, we're going to be a better dancer and do the 1-2 step, but how can we be better people together?
I mean, that's the premise, I think, about everything that I do now, right? The premise of this Guided Home podcast is coming home to that principle, is that we base everything, if we base everything on the principle of coming back home to self, discovering what that means, discovering your own personal, unique signature of who you are as a dancer, as a singer, as an artist, as a filmmaker, whatever, as a doctor. It brings more life into what it is that you do. And on that level, you become a healer of sorts, right? You teach people how to be and source their own beauty and their own power in the art that they've chosen, which for you is dance.
Yeah.
And so much of dance, and I'm going to take that back, not so much, I think all of dance is a healing modality, right? We know about somatic tools, right? And dance is this beautiful artwork where you bring the unknown into the known. You bring the unseen into the seen. You interpret energy. You interpret emotion. You interpret the music, and then you create, and then you showcase it through the movement. And that's beautiful. It's so very healing. So talk about then how dance, over the decades that you've been a choreographer, a dancer, a mentor, how has dance taken you to points in your life where it did heal?
Lots of times. It's something that I can go to, that I can count on, that is always there for me to help me heal, to help me move through where I am in life.
Yes.
But one thing that really brings it back is when I went through my first heartbreak.
Okay.
Like as an adult, I'm like, oh gosh, my world is over. You know, I was like, wow, I thought this guy was going to be it. And so I was 20 at this time.
Okay.
And with that, it was tough for me. And I'm like, well, what do I do with this? How do I sit into this? How do I move through this? And with having this experience happen, I remember calling all of my best girlfriends, because I was living with this guy at the time, and found out he was cheating. And I'm like, all right, well, I got to get out of here. So I called them up and I'm like, let's move out now. I'm moving out now, while he was like at work. So I moved out and like all my best girlfriends came over with their cars. We filled like our cars up and I left. And I'm like, I'm not going to take any of this.
Wow.
And then from there, they were with me. They were my support system. And there were also people that I danced with. And so one day I was like, hey, can we all get together? I have an opportunity that one of these organizers for a show came up to me and was like, hey, we have an opening for this month for the show. Can you do it? I'm like, sure. And having that be the first opportunity for me to be like, what am I going to put on stage by myself? And so I got my best girlfriends that helped me through, and we danced into this whole piece, this whole stage piece. It was the first time ever feeling like emotion while I danced.
Wow.
Because I think as a child, you're like, feel sad in this piece. And you're like, you just kind of like put it on.
Yeah.
But then it was an actual like moment that I remember at the end of the piece, we were on stage. This show was in Hollywood, and there's a lot of our friends out there because they knew what I was going through. And I looked right, I looked left, and I was like, oh my gosh, like my girlfriends are crying next to me on stage. Wow. Like it was so powerful. And then after that, they're like, hey, we liked doing that. Can we still dance together? And I go, sure, let's do it. And that birthed my dance company that I had for 6 years, Essence.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. And what did Essence do? What was it that you guys, you choreographed pieces?
At first it was just like a bunch of girlfriends that were just like, let's dance together. Let's learn together. Let's create together. And from there, people were like, oh, we want you to perform more from that opportunity. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's perform at this show, at that show. And then people started to ask us, hey, do you teach? Do you all teach? Not just you as me. I'm like, yeah, sure. And I made the girls teach. So at first they were just like, I don't teach. Like, we just dance. We learn the moves. And I gave them opportunities to teach. And from there, we grew into teachers. We grew into a company that travels around the world teaching and choreographing and performing. We traveled all of Asia, did Asia tours. We did tours in Canada. We had residencies in Europe. It was crazy. I was like, wow, like I never thought that this would happen from an authentic like moment of release of emotion. And that's what birthed the whole trajectory of that group in all of our careers. Everybody from that group has and is still having really successful careers in dance or healing or personal development and all of that.
Wow, that's amazing. So basically at 2021, you birthed your new career. You birthed a company. You became an entrepreneur at such a young age using what I would call a guided home moment. That's incredible. So after that, after the 6 years, what else happened in your trajectory as a dancer, as a choreographer? Because I know that you've done so much in that space, and take us on that journey.
Yeah, we had it was tough to keep the the group because everybody was shooting off to their own success and their own happiness, and some were even like getting married and having children, having like just new parts in their life. I'm like, I don't know if we can still be a crew and we're all I'm like, that would be nice, but it was hard to keep it all together. So decided to let it go. It was a really hard time though, because it was my identity. And I think with that, it's like always like Gigi of Essence, or like we had other people in it of like, you know, their name of Essence. And we all kind of had to pull away from what we were, but still keep what we learned during that time to go into this next phase. And with that, I had been traveling already for maybe 8 years already, traveling overseas and starting to be in conventions and teaching conventions around the nation. There was a part of me that was like, there's something missing, but I don't know what this is, because I love what I do. I love traveling. I love to embrace the cultures that I'm in, but what's missing? What's missing? And I went to Spain. It was like my third time going to this certain convention. I was only supposed to be there. Like I left on Thursday, was supposed to arrive Friday, teach Saturday, Sunday, and then come back on a Sunday night. And it was
that's a fast turnaround.
Yeah, it's a very fast turnaround for an overseas gig. And with having that, I'm like, well, okay, let's just do this. Let's go. Let's go for the third time. We're good. Like, I know these people already. I got there and my bag was lost. And I'm like, oh gosh, my bag's lost. Like, I'm only going to be here for a few days. And I only have like the clothes on my back. And I got like, I mean, dancers were all super dramatic. So, so like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I lost everything. Oh my gosh, my life. So I'm in my hotel room, just kind of like contemplating life. And I'm like, what is missing except my bag? Like, something's missing. And I think after the first day of classes, I just realized what was missing was connection.
Oh, wow.
Because I go to these places for 2 days and I'm like, hey guys, cool. We connected for a sec. And I'm like, peace. See you in LA. If you come to LA, go to Debbie Reynolds. I teach there, and I might have never seen these people ever again.
Right.
So that was like missing, because it was just like a quick connection, but it wasn't deep.
Yes. And
I had to create something that was on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And I created my Gigi process programs. So my dance programs, where people would sign up, they would work with me for a week, and we would go deep into not just their dance training, but deep into their mindset, deep into what their goals are, and create where they're going to go, like what the path is to where they're going to be or where they want to be. So that was a great first moment of like, all right, I need to create something. Let's do something, because something was missing.
Yeah.
So
that's incredible. First of all, that you allowed yourself to transition out of Essence, because a lot of times with my clients that come to me and say, you know, I just feel stuck, they say exactly what you say. I feel like there's something more, and I feel like I'm stuck. And one of the things that comes through a lot is the word allow. Allowing yourself to transition out of a paradigm that once was your identity, because we like to be identified by what we do in our careers, and allowing it to move you into the next phase of that and transition. And you being able to follow that deeper knowing, you being able to follow the guidance of like, I know that there's something more. I know that, and it still probably has to do with dance. And then you allowed that opportunity to slip right down, and you're like, no, it's the connection piece. And then that's another one of those moments where you're like, there's more here. There's a deeper meaning to what I'm doing, and creating that next iteration of your offering, the next iteration of how dance is your vehicle to gift others with this beautiful healing process, right? And this process that you've created. Yeah. So how long did that go on for?
I've taken a break for the last couple years, but it still went on I started in 2012, and it went on all the way until just different iterations of the program.
Yeah.
So I did different things for dancers or for choreographers, or smaller versions, like to learn how to find your own style, your own uniqueness through your dancing, or find your whole branding through what you create. So I've done over 50 programs.
Oh my gosh.
In the last 10, 12 years.
Wow.
And over 800 alumni members.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I did not even know that. Yeah. Meanwhile, you're still like jetting off to Europe, right? Because you're a judge on So You Think You Can Dance in Europe, right?
So I did So You Think You Can Dance in Europe. I was a choreographer. Mm-hmm. So I did Ukraine, I did Poland, Scandinavia.
Wow.
And I was just on for an episode. So I would do a piece for a group or a duo and then would come back. But I did stop, I think, lightening down after that Spain trip because I'm like, okay, I need to build roots for my program here. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, I love going to Spain or I love going to these places, but where's the longevity in going to these places? Mm-hmm. Do I see myself going to these places when I'm 50? And I said no. So I'm like, all right, well, I need to create something that is more of my home base, but still can be more around the nation too. Still traveling though.
Yeah, you are. You're still traveling every weekend, and that's with a dance company or?
Yeah, so I am traveling with a convention called Rebel Dance Convention. Mm-hmm. And
I remember those days.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy because I'm like, wow, I used to be these kids.
Yes, like the Tremaine. Do you remember the Joe Tremaine convention?
That was my first convention I went to.
Yes.
And they still have it around.
Ducky was like that. Well, I'm older than you, but like I remember Ducky, and then one of Janet Jackson's choreographers used to always go, and we always wanted to take his class. Yes. And those were such great days. Yes. So you now are one of the famous teachers that get to come and all of these young kids, because I see your posts, I see these kids, like they're fierce, like way better dancers than we ever were like back in the day.
How are you that cool at 8?
I know. Right? Like the generations just keep getting better and better.
Yes.
And it's so great that they get you, because not only are you there to choreograph and to dance with them, but you also bring a whole nother element. So do you infuse a little bit of what you do as a coach into these dance conventions?
Oh, yes, for sure. Because the majority of them are female.
Okay.
So with that, I have to be like, all right, I need to teach them how to be a strong female. And it's not just like, here's this choreography, but like even my littles, my minis, their ages, I think the youngest maybe is like 6 to like 8 or 9 in that room. And I have to teach them how to be strong. So I give them affirmations. I'm like, give me an I am. And they're like, what is that? I'm like, what are you? So it starts with that. I think it always starts with having that positive affirmation for them to believe in themselves, especially at a young age. Yes. And if they can instill that type of belief, then they can grow into an amazing person.
Yeah, whatever they want to be.
Whatever they want to be.
Even if it doesn't continue as dance, it continues as you're feeding people's souls. You're feeding these young girls at the core of who they are, allowing them to use dance as the vehicle to believe that they are and can be and do whatever it is that they want and whatever it is that they allow themselves to do. And meanwhile, like while you're going through all of this, life is happening, right? And so you're going through your own human journey, and dance still continues to feed you and nourish you in ways and move you through like regular human being life, right?
Really? It's dance again. Like I will say it again and again. Like it's that one thing that I can go back to that is my home. That one thing that I can go back to that I can always count on, no matter what I'm going through in life.
Yes. Yeah. So now at this juncture in your life, can you talk about this new baby that you've birthed with a dear good friend of yours? I had the great opportunity of being a small part of it last month. Reclaim and Rise.
Reclaim and Rise. It's such a new baby.
Yeah,
it's a newborn.
It's beautiful.
I am so excited to be on this journey with my friend Alabon. She and I went on a brunch last summer, and so she's a mom of 2, and she brought her kids, and we're like, okay, cool, let's like have brunch, and we had all of our girlfriends there too. And she was like, oh my gosh, I've been starting to take classes because that's my outlet from mommyhood.
Yeah.
And she's like, I started to take classes, and now it's so weird to be in these classes with 18-year-olds.
Yeah, right.
And I go, I know. Like, I teach for all of that. When I see like that one older one, I'm like, yeah, nice. Like, yes. It's cool to see like a bunch of different ages, but she was not feeling comfortable with that. And so we kind of talked about it. And then I'm like, yeah, I wish there was a space that we could have for our own like generation. And she's like, yeah, I always wanted to open a space. And I go, me too. And then we like looked at each other going, wait a minute there.
Yeah.
And I have, a couple of our other friends that were there, they have been on Essence with me already too. Alabon was not on Essence. She was on Caba Modern.
Okay.
And so that's how we know, and that's how the family is all together with
interconnected.
That. Yes. Yeah. And she's like, we've never collabed. I'm like, I know. We've never really worked together. I'm like, well, let's keep talking about this.
Yeah.
And we kept talking about it.
Yeah.
And it just seemed real to be like, let's start this thing.
Wow.
And we started with having the vision of making sure that people that I'm in my late 30s. So making sure that people in our late 30s, because we go into these things where like she has a family, I'm like on my career, like going, and make sure we have a space for people to come home to where they can be, just have their own me time, basically. Like we talked to so many of our friends and they're like, oh, I'm losing myself. Or like things are like, I'm losing myself. I don't know myself anymore. Who am I?
Right.
What do I love? I don't know what I love anymore. Like we were like, that's not good. Like we need to be able to be our true selves so that we can show up for everybody else in our life, whether it's our families, whether it's our students, whether it's anybody. So I think with that, it's like, let's create a space where they can come home and just breathe and dance, because that's what they were before. They were dancers, they were retired dancers, but it brought them life before. So why not bring it to them now?
Right. Preach, girl. Preach. That was such a good riff right there. But I also do think, because I know that we had like a little mini mastermind prior to all of this, where you gathered a bunch of your friends and dancers and people that you wanted to kind of be a part of it. It was born out of a space of, at one point in all of your lives, and even my own life, we were performers, we were on a stage doing an art form and that sort of thing. And as life progresses, as we grow wiser and we grow older, that part of who we were isn't exactly who we are now. And so, those spaces, I think one of the things was like the spaces that you could go to dance, right? Were really geared towards the up and coming dancers, or the dancers that were still trying to curate a career and do all of that stuff. So the one thing that I love and that I loved about what I had heard back then in our little mastermind was that it's a space for really just anybody, ex-dancers or non-dancers, to come and find a path of movement, a path of using dance as an art form to express themselves, even in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And it's beautiful because you guys are integrating different dance styles, and you're integrating this whole holistic approach with integrating Pilates and yoga and then heels. Like, I'm excited for the heels. And then, throwbacks and all of that stuff. So it's a beautiful way to welcome, I think, this new generation of dancers that they still want to dance, they still want to participate and be in the room, but just aren't trying to make a career out of it anymore. And just want to have fun doing it and be in the joy of doing it. And I think that's, that word comes up a lot, is when we do something just for the joy of it, it becomes that healing space, right? Yeah. It becomes that activity. It becomes that thing that we receive so much from, as opposed to maybe back in the day we were doing it because we really needed that job, right? We needed to, get that job, that audition, all of the things. And now just to be able to do it just for the sheer joy of it, that's a guided home moment. Like, that brings us back to like, ooh, okay, I'm still in here. I'm still sexy. Yeah. I can still move, that sort of thing. So I can't wait for the next Reclaim and Rise, which is happening when? You can talk about that.
Yeah. So we have our experiences, which are about like 3 months apart. So we had the first one in March. The next one's going to be in June 9th. And that's the R&R experience, where we're going to have different things. It's going to be themed on grit and grace.
Okay.
So we have like a balance of what you're in there for.
Yes.
So there's 2 tracks. There's going to be a heels class, and then there's also going to be a shadow boxing hit class with that one.
Wow.
The other track is going to be a dance cardio class,
Okay.
and then a yoga class after.
That's beautiful.
And then you're going to start it off with grounding us,
Yeah.
and then you're going to end it off with a sound healing bath for all of us too.
That's so cool. And I love the different tracks because, you know, of course, in this space, I can't not talk about like the balance between like the masculine and the feminine, or the doing and then the receiving, right? And I think you guys do a beautiful job of like curating that specifically for like, what track do you guys want? What is it that you want to express today?
How are you feeling today at this moment right now?
Yeah. And so when you choose a track, do you just choose one track, or you can do one class in the grit and one class in the grace?
Well, we have tracks. Both of the tracks have grit and grace in it.
Oh, okay.
Because I think from what our experience is, like, I feel like you need that balance. So people can pick what they want to do, but it's all going to have grit and grace.
Yeah, that's amazing. Your whole entire career as a dancer has been creation, and it's not just creating the choreography, creating, you know, the dance. It has literally been creating and curating your own life path. Talk about like the power behind that of like, you know, if I think you had mentioned earlier, like when the opportunities were not there laid out for you, you're like, okay, I'm going to make it myself. Like that's huge. So many of our young people need to hear that they are empowered to create the path for them if it's not beautifully packaged up and, you know, delivered to them, right? So many, I think, of our young people think like, oh, I have to go to college and I have to do the things. College is great for some. College is not for everybody, right? And there are some people who are like, I'm going to create the damn thing for myself. So talk about what it took for you. What was it? What do you think it was, like this internal compass for you that was like, you know what, I'm going to create the damn thing?
Well, I think it was a lot of people telling me that I had to be in this box first, or I had to go to do this path in order to do this first. And I'm like, what? Why? You know? I'm like, you did it that way because you have your own experiences, you have your own things, but why do I have to do that same thing? And I mean, I think it started off with, honestly, my parents being like, well, you know, we're first generation immigrants here, and I'm first generation born in the States, so you have to go to college.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, okay, cool. And I thought that was really what I had to do. But then I'm like, well, this is not me. I tried it. You know, I didn't be like, no, I don't want to do this. But I tried it for 1.5 years, and I'm like, I need to fly. I felt so like small there.
Yes.
So then I had to go and like try this dance thing. And then from doing different things too, like when I wanted to be a choreographer, and I remember I was sitting with another choreographer that was choreographing for a lot of A-list artists. Okay. And I had this moment of like, oh my gosh, I'm like, we're talking, we're like, this is cool. Yeah. Like, I'm like, I love this connection here. He's like, so what do you want to do with your life? I go, I want to choreograph. Yeah. I want to teach. I've been teaching since I was 15. Yeah. And at this point I was like 21, 22. And he goes, well, you know, you have to book the A-list artists to dance for them first, and then you can be a teacher. And then I go, what does it have to do with being a teacher? Right. What does like dancing for Britney Spears or dancing for, you know, Missy Elliott have anything to do with teaching?
Right.
I'm like, it's teaching dance, I'm not teaching someone how to dance for those people. Right. And some people do, which is great. Like that's their niche. Path. Yeah. But for me, I'm like, I don't think I need to do that. And he goes, well, just know that it's going to be a really hard road for you. And I go, okay, cool.
So good. So good, girl.
So then I was like, I'll take this road. And I ended up taking the road. It was hard. People were like, oh, maybe you're not worthy of teaching this space because you don't have those credentials.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I'm going to make these credentials.
Oh my gosh.
So Essence, even though Essence, like going back to that, like was a dance company, it was a credential that people were like, oh, you started Essence? Yeah. Can you teach for us? And I'm like, wow. Like it didn't have to be an artist. Like it was great. It was great because it changed how the community was back then too, and how people saw others and what their value is in bringing into what space that they're going into.
Oh my gosh, I love it. It's lighting me up so much because there's a couple of things that really stuck out is that you did not waver from your own inner knowing. You did not waver from what you intrinsically know deep down inside, right? Even this A-list choreographer that told you, if you don't do it this way, then you can just peace out, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, I don't think so, right? Like that takes a lot of grit at 21, 22 years old to just be like, no, actually, I kind of feel like I know what I want and where I'm going. And like, it just gives me full body chills because it's like, that's what we talk about all the time. That's what the last 2 podcast episodes have been about, is trusting that inner knowing and not wavering. Does it make it any easier? No, it doesn't. But is anything easier? Do you think that following the ABCD path makes it easier than somebody who wants to go from their intuitive knowing? It doesn't. Mm-hmm. It's just, which heart are you going to choose? Right. The one that you think you're supposed to do that's nicely packaged for you, or the one that you're going to create on your own. And then you look back at your age now in your late 30s and you're like, oh, I've created X, Y, and Z companies. Like how many companies now have you created and that sort of thing. So it's like finding that inner guidance system, that inner voice, and not wavering from that and trusting it. Mm-hmm. And also being curious enough to say, that doesn't sit well with me. Like I don't believe what you believe. So I'm going to go and try to find out on my own. And is there going to be some like mess ups? Absolutely. And then you course correct, and you continue to follow that guidance system. And then you course correct, and then you continue to allow yourself to follow. And it's beautiful. It's like I look at your life. I look at what you've created. I look at this following that you've amassed and these beautiful companies that have been birthed literally from your own life experience. And that's what this is. That's what this space is literally a company that has been birthed from my own life experience, because I know that there is so much more, and there's so much more of a deeper connection that we must have with others, regardless of what it is, dance, whether you're a lawyer or a doctor, a singer, or even just a beautiful human being that's serving food to somebody. There's always that call to have that deeper connection. And you literally have created that through the medium of dance and your gifts. So thank you for doing that. I mean, I think that this is just the beginning for you. There's this whole other chapter that's beginning to unfold for this next juncture in your life. And you've listened to that. Another one of those, I think that I need to create something because I don't see anything out there. Yeah. Thank you for doing that.
Yes. And it's nuts because sometimes when I create, I'm like, is this the right thing? Do I go back and forth? Like I go back and forth. Yeah. As creatives, I think we always go back and forth. But it's always like, okay, there's that intuition that's telling us like, yes, keep going, keep going, keep going. Or there's full circle moments where, going back to that story about, the A-list choreographer telling me that this is not the way. I taught with him last summer at an intensive.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, hey, what up? And he's like, what up, homie? And he goes, I'm like, wow, this is crazy, because that moment was the first, when I talked to him when I was 21, like that was the first outside teaching gig that I had, like outside of California. And then now we're like at a different space, and I saw him again and I'm like, wow. And he goes, yo, you did it.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, oh, he's like, homie, you've made it. And so I was like, it was crazy to think that the full circle moment of that moment, thinking, oh my gosh, like, should I go this way that he's saying that this is how it usually is, or should I do it my own way? But then with him seeing how my career, my journey went, and then him saying, wow, you set out what you said to do.
That is very powerful, and I'm getting very emotional. Just even hearing that story, didn't know that. And it brought me to that movie. Have you ever seen Sliding Doors, where it's with Gwyneth Paltrow? And basically the premise of the movie is that, you know, just the matter of making one choice over the other and seeing the life trajectory if you took, you know, path A or path B, and then how a full circle moment brings you right to that same exact point that you were always meant to do and be where you are today. And there are choices, there are different paths. It's just a matter of taking that path that you're being led to in that moment, guided by you. And that just fully makes me so emotional, because it's one of those things that, you know, any young person, you know, in their late teens or their 20s, even 30s or even 40s and beyond, listening to this is like, you know, there is no right path. It's the path that you choose at every given moment in your life. It's that path that you choose at every juncture of like, okay, do I do it this way or do I do it that way? And can I be in tune with myself long enough to kind of listen to that guidance system, right? And that's huge. That's a huge full circle moment. That's a huge lesson for anybody listening, that it's okay. Like, you're okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to do the thing no matter what, right?
And I think like what you were saying for young people to learn this, we have to realize that we're in a place that we can create something from nothing.
Yeah.
We can do things that a lot of other places can't. Yes. So we have to take that gift that was given to us to go forward with that. But now, if you do realize it, but I think for the young people listening here, it's like, or, you know, whoever, it's about giving yourself permission to move through that space, to make mistakes, to fall on the floor, and then to pick yourself right back up and keep going on that path.
Yes.
Because once you know where you want to go, the path, it'll show. It'll show once you keep walking.
Yeah. One thing I always say is just take that next right step. Don't think about what's happening years from now. Just do the next right thing that you are being called to. And it was something that one of my clients gave to me, and he actually came in for a private session. And then after that session, we ended up talking about me wanting to start this business, wanting to start Ascension. And it's like he healed me right after that. And he was just like, okay. And he was talking me through things with me. And he has, you know, amassed a beautiful, hugely successful company. And he's like, what are you scared of? He's like, you already know what you want to do. You already know it's there. And he's like, don't think about anything else. Just do the next right thing. Just think about what it is that you have to do next, and then do next and do next and do next. And he's like, and then you're going to turn around and you're going to look and you're going to have your own company. Well, that happened in July of 2023, at the very end of July of 2023. And we opened Ascension up in January of 2024. And so that last appointment, actually, no, he had an appointment in August, but from his last appointment with me to the next time that he came in, this was created. And he was like, see, what did I tell you? And that's the same thing with anything in life, right? It's so beautiful. It's so easy, and it's so incredibly difficult, because I think we make it incredibly difficult. There's so many voices. There's so many people telling you that you have to do it this way. There's so many things that are saying that if you don't do it this way, you're not going to be successful. If you don't do it this way, then you're going to fail. And all of that is BS. It's, you know, you're a living testament to listening to yourself, curating a life that you know and you knew that you were working towards all along, and that full circle moment where you ended up on that same level playing field as that A-list choreographer. And that's beautiful. It's a huge, huge lesson. So thank you for sharing that. I've never heard that story because that was actually a recent occurrence. Was this last month that you saw this person?
I saw them last summer.
Oh, last summer.
Last
That's
August.
when that happened. That's so beautiful. You are an incredible light worker. You are an incredible way shower that I'm so grateful that you are here doing what you're doing. I always think in terms of like one day when I have grandkids and I talk about, you know, to other people, you know, you have to step into your gifts. This is the time. This is where and when this is happening. We are creating this new world. We're creating a new paradigm. And, you know, for selfish reasons, I'm not going to be here forever, but my grandkids and my great grandkids are going to need you and your gifts and that sort of thing. So I am so grateful that A, your family, B, that we get to work together, and thank you so much for sharing your light and your gifts with the world.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Is there anything more that you wish to leave our listeners with?
I think just keep remembering who you are.
Yes.
Keep remembering who you are. Keep remembering what your purpose is. And the next step of the path is going to show.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a song or a sound that sings you home?
For me, I think it's listening to my own breath. Yeah, that's the sound. Because I remember, like, when I'm in my head, when I have anxiety, when I have things, I remember that I'm not breathing. So when I can breathe, that's the sound of, all right, we're here, we're present, and we're moving.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. As a breathwork practitioner, and the first thing that I do anytime I see clients is that breath, and that's a huge reminder, is that literally is the one thing that does bring us back home into our body. It connects us from here to here, and it can bring us into that remembering that you were talking about. Thank you for sharing that. How does everybody work with you? How can we work with you? How do they get in touch with you?
You can find me on socials, Gigi Torres on Instagram. You can look at what I do on my website, gigitorres.com. And you can find me at Reclaim and Rise too. So follow us on Reclaim and Rise. And we're going to have just a great journey coming up.
Absolutely. So Reclaim and Rise, the next journey is on Sunday, June 9th, correct?
Yes, correct.
Absolutely. And where is this happening?
It's going to happen in Costa Mesa, California.
Okay. Awesome. Well, anybody listening can come and join. Just go to gigitorres.com, right? And I'll link everything in the show notes and all of that good stuff. So Thank you. I love you.
Love you. Auntie Kristine.